Today on the Relationship Renovation podcast, Tarah and I open up about a really difficult moment in our relationship just in the past couple days.
It's never going to change, and like that I cannot live in this type of family for one more second or I will explode.
So that happened in the hallway. Our intent is to help people understand that, that we go through really difficult times. We have big blowouts with our partners. In those moments, it's like, I'm trapping you, like I'm the bad guy, that there's always something to be learned.
Hello all, and welcome to the Relationship Renovation podcast. I'm Tarah Kerwin.
And my name is EJ Kerwin.
And of course, we always love podcasts when we've just had like a total blowout in our own relationship. And within 24 hours, our podcast, is scheduled. And then we get to talk about it and how much closer it had made us feel. Yet it was, for me, maybe one of the biggest arguments we've had in
a long time.
In a really long time. So, of course, we're going to share it.
I really wanted to talk about this even when we were still like beginning to figure it out, because one of the things that came to me is we talk a lot about like things like code word and all these tools, but there are certain times where you get into an argument with your partner where it is just unwieldy,
off to the races.
And as much as you might try to use the tools, they don't work. And what I came out of this, and I will kind of, break it down as it goes, was like, sometimes it's okay, or sometimes you have to like really have things fall apart.
I love that you said that, because at first, like when you were like, I think we should talk about this in our podcast, I'm like, no, like we'll look like imposters. We'll look like we don't have our shit together. But there are times where we actually don't. Do we try to use our skills? Most of the time, yes. But like it like you said, it normalizes. Like sometimes it had to get that bad for us to be here today. And I actually feel more connected with you, and I think our family does. And we'll get into what happened. But yeah, like it's okay. I'm not an imposter. I'm a human being that gets triggered, that at times is not her best self. But I take accountability for it and we repair it. We repaired it within 24 hours.
Yeah. Well, and we have so many people that like write into our show, and the way the tone in which they're talking about their problems, I feel like it's like they think like they're just like totally messed up and like they are unfixable. And then I think like, our air we put off maybe sometimes might feel to somebody like we have it all figured out. And what was really great.
Have you seen my ugly cries on here, honey?
Yeah,
Come on.
Well, but okay. I mean, in the context of like, even when you're having your ugly cries, like I'm over here, like looking supportive and like, looking.
You are supportive.
Yeah. Yes. But like this argument we had, it was like 48 hours ago or so, was like the apocalypse of our relationship. I mean, it felt like it was a reality. Like we might not make it,
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just want to share that because I think that's a reality of relationship. I think most people have moments, maybe not all the time, but maybe relatively frequently or episodically, where one or both of them feels like, oh my God, we're not going to make it.
Well, it's that. And I don't think we have to get into all the specifics. I really don't. But I feel like, because I was thinking about this yesterday, it was really yesterday when it started to get better in the afternoon. But I was like, what if I would have stayed in that hopeless place? Like so many couples stay in that hopeless place. I go to therapy every week. I try to practice what I preach most of the time. I know my values. I know my heart. So I was able to come back to like my what do I want to say? Like my bigger self, my adult self, my wiser self. I was able to come back to it sooner than later, but there's so many people, individuals that stay in that hopeless place. And that is where I really have empathy.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So we're not going to get like into the total nitty gritty of it. Because it's, I don't know, it's like a little personal as far as like we would, because we have a family, because there's 6 of us, it would be sort of like maybe outing somebody else within our family. So we want to be respectful of that. But I think it's okay to talk about some of the like dynamics of it and how it happened. And then I think it's like, might be useful for the audience to hear like what that argument in that living room looked like.
Yeah.
Because again, I think it's going to normalize what a lot of people are going through.
Let's hope. Or we get to be judged.
Or and whatever. Man.
And have bad comments towards us. It's okay.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, I think what's so unsettling about these arguments sometimes is it literally came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It literally came out of nowhere. Now the topic is a topic that we've been struggling with for a long time. It's around blended family stuff. But like that night, like everything was actually fine. Like we were like joking and there was no real tension that I remember between us. And then there was an inciting incident at bedtime.
Yeah. Right before we're going to watch our
reality
show.
Our time where we like actually like everybody's, in bed and we get to have some alone time. So the inciting incident happened. And then there was an interaction where you were in the hallway and I could tell you were
upset,
automatically pissed. And I was in the bedroom. And I think like one of the difference and why it lit off was that I was pissed. I was like,
yeah, you didn't have my back.
I don't know if I didn't have your back. I would say I was just like, I was frustrated at the way you express your upset.
Right. But only because the day before I expressed a similar upset in a healthier way. And that was not receptive. And so then I see it happen again. And I'm like, oh, this isn't okay.
Yes.
So then I get very firm and I'm like, this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And this is like to one of our kids, by the way, it wasn't with each other. And then you get protective over one of the kids instead of having my back. That's how I felt.
That's how you felt. Yes.
Yeah. And again, it's just this, right? My big thing around this is like, I grew up in a family super disconnected. And so my little idea is like everyone wants to talk to each other now in our family and everyone's going to be so engaging and we're going to have so much fun. And when our family's disconnected, when I see kids like zoning out, isolated in their bedroom, on their screen, not talking to each other, my heart hurts and it triggers trauma from my past. And I try to express it like, to our family, like it's really important to me that you guys talk to each other. Just ask questions, say hi to us, say goodbye to us. Just like, I'm not asking for much because it hurts my heart when I see our family not communicative. So that was like my trigger because it came from my past trauma. But in that moment, I just felt powerless, like it's never going to change. And like that I cannot live in this type of family for one more second or I will explode.
So that happened in the hallway. So that happened in the hallway. And then we tried to get away. We got away from the kids because I think both of us knew like, okay, this is gonna be hard to contain. So that was a good thing. That was a positive thing was we got the kids to bed. It didn't really, they knew that there was tension, that there was tension, but we took it to the living room. And then in the living room, it just completely devolved. I mean, because I think you were extremely triggered.
Yeah. I was like a volcano ready to erupt. Like I could feel the heat and it was like sustaining for like an hour at least. Cause I sat in the bedroom and I tried to calm down. Like I was on fire in my body.
But what happened is like, for me, is in those situations, normally I contain myself. I don't like sort of like, I don't lose my cool. And in this situation, I lost my cool. I was just like, and really about different stuff because at the end of the day, where we got to eventually is we really want the same things, but I lost my cool about different stuff. And this is like what I think what couples really struggle with is we were both in that moment. We talk about this all the time. We were both triggered, but the trigger was different. Your trigger was about the family. My trigger was about us.
Yeah, it was different.
And not feeling supported and feeling judged and not liking the way we communicate in those moments.
Right.
And then we got to that place where we say we're not going to get where it was like slinging around the divorce word, right?
Well, yeah. Before
back it up.
I'm backing it up because what we both realized in that moment is like that because this dynamic has happened for so long that I do not trust that it will get better. AKA, I don't trust you that you will be consistent in helping continue to make our family communicate with each other. Because I felt like it was all on me. And if I wasn't even there, what would people even do? They'd just be like locked themselves in their bedroom. Like I didn't know. So then you come at me like that you don't trust me either to share your feelings. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? So then I'm like, okay, well, we don't trust each other. Why are we even married? I'm so done. Like literally, because I thought you were getting so much better at like sharing feelings with me. And then I'm like, maybe I'm crazy. Okay, he doesn't trust me and I don't trust him. And let's throw this whole freaking thing away.
Yeah.
So it started with that. And then absolutely, like I think in my body, not for one more second will I be triggered of how bad it feels when our family is not connected. I will not live in that home for one more minute. It doesn't feel good. And so my whole thing was like, you're the one that keeps not helping. That's how I saw it. Well, and I think you saw me the same way.
Well, and what I saw was that like, and again, I think this is something that couples can relate to is like, I felt like we can't get together on this. Like, I felt like it's all on me.
And I felt like it's all on me.
Yeah. And I was, and so it was like, we're both sort of coming from the same place. And it was just like, I feel like, I don't feel supported in making the changes that really you want, that we want together.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel safe. It feels like a lot of judgment. It feels a lot of anger, and
well, and it's so different, EJ. But here's the thing, because I was judging you, like, how do you not, like, every day go in and like say, hey, how can we be a family today? You also grew up in a very loving family. It's very different. Like, you will never understand my perspective.
Totally.
You will never understand the hurt it causes when I see isolation.
No, I get that.
And so And that's where, and I have to recognize that you don't understand that instead of judging you like you're a bad parent or you're like avoidant, it's that you don't know that feeling, but you don't know how profound. It's so profound that I can't spend another minute because it literally hurts my heart when people are disconnected. Because I knew at a young age that I would never have a family like that I would always choose love, connection, and presence. And when it happens day after day, and I get it, people grow up and they become teenagers and they become about themselves. But when they're not even saying hi or how are you, that doesn't feel good to me. Right. And so again, I was in my suffering. I still am, obviously, and that's okay. Because we are making changes. But here's the thing, you've got to be consistent with it. And we have to check in every day about it, even if it's good. And this is where couples get really stuck because they might try something, like when couples try check-ins, when they start our services or the at home, we love the check-ins, and then they start to drop off from the check-ins, and then everything starts to like boil up again.
Well, and that's the frustration for me is it doesn't feel connected, and it feels adversarial, and it feels judgmental, and that there's like, I get like, it's really easy when you're talking about it in this way, which is from your heart and in this like really this sadness based place and this desire and this want for something that you didn't have. But when it comes out like anger and judgment, and it has an edge to it, like that's when I get scrambled on it for a lot of reasons, but because it doesn't feel loving and it doesn't feel supportive.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel like I can't be like, well, I'm frustrated about this as well. Because I feel like if I bring it up in those moments and I say like, hey, this is frustrating me about our family, then it just like, you're like, yes. And then you're just like, you're 5 feet in front of me. And yeah. I'm not like, okay, well, my process is totally lost in the process.
But here's what we were doing wrong. And this is why we're sharing the podcast. Because you were having your own conversations with kids.
Yes.
But you weren't telling me. So I didn't know. So I thought you were ignoring the whole situation and just allowing isolation to continue to happen. And you weren't letting me know like, hey, I had this conversation with blah, blah today. And, I am concerned. Like you weren't sharing those feelings with me. So that's where I felt alone in it. And so the mistake we made has been that we haven't been talking about it. And so then it erupts again because we haven't been talking about it. You haven't been sharing your conversations with me. I try to share my anxieties with you, but when they compel and get bigger and bigger, that's when I explode. And so again, what we're reminding ourselves of, and these are right, Dr. Stan Tatkin's, the triple Ps, I call them, predict, plan, prepare, that like every single day we have to predict, plan, and prepare for our family and for us. And that when we don't do that, we totally misalign. And you have to share your conversations with me. I have to share my conversations and feelings with you. So every single day, we are together and united in it. Every day. I feel like that is what is going to be how we join together in this. But I'm not exactly sure what's happening for you.
Well, I'm thinking about a few things. I'm thinking about first, just back to that argument and why we're sharing it is like that we stuck at a really difficult argument for like, we were in that room for probably an hour and a half. And
I know you tried to walk out twice and you came back.
And I came back. So I was going against there was a part of me that just wanted to walk out and just like get out of it. And I kept like walking away, centering myself just a tiny bit, and then coming back into it. And so it's like we had to sort of like go through the hell and the uncomfortableness of it. Like we had to I had to say some difficult things to you. I had to like sort of stand up for myself in ways that sometimes I don't. Like
which I want you to.
You had to continue to advocate and tell me like this, I cannot live with this any longer. We also like sort of, I think at least, had to be confronted with, if we don't figure this out, what's going to happen? Like we're going to break up our family.
Absolutely.
Like that had to like maybe like be a real tangible possibility, because I think that's where denial gets in, is when you like just have an argument and then you walk away and then you just wake up the next day and pretend it didn't happen.
I know.
Like we had to like really sit in that night, not sleep well, wake up the next day, not knowing like, can we actually make this work? I think that was important for us. That was important for me. And And then, and then here's like the next part is our kids the next day, they sensed it.
Oh yeah, Mia.
They knew that like we were in a rough place.
I mean, and everyone asked separately. Like Mia asked me, "Do you still love Daddy? Are you going to get divorced?" One of your older sons asked you, "What would happen if I couldn't see the twins anymore?" Like it was awful.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about that was, as we healed, as we both kind of calmed down and recognized that this is really hard, and having a blended family is really hard, and right, having a past with trauma is really hard, blended in with that. We realized, like, we were cooking dinner last night, and I said, we've got to address what happened with all of our kids, because I don't want them thinking what's happening or trying to like mind read or caretake or whatever. And so the kids were eating tacos or whatever, and we just all sat there, and I was super vulnerable, and I shared my feelings. Like, was I my best self in the last 12 hours? No. Here's what's happening for me. I really helped them understand. I was for sure tearful. And I feel like it's so important, because otherwise kids try to understand their own messages through their own little brain that's not developed. And I'm glad that we had that vulnerability and that rawness with our kids, because they know that we're going to be okay. Like, I feel more connected. I feel like, okay, that's out in the open, and this is like why this happened, and like this can't be like this anymore. Like we're going to work together, EJ and I, to shift our family dynamics so we can have more quality time together as a family.
In doing that, it broke up two things, like specifically just to this dynamic is the dynamic of like, I go off and try to solve problems on my own, deal with independent conversations with different people, then come to you. And it forced us, like, we had that family meeting and you and I were together, and that's been the missing element in my perception about how we deal with this particular dynamic. And I think it could be the same in many different areas that we struggle with, of like, where like we're not together in it. We're like both sort of solving it in our own way, but not together. And that is like what I need, and that's what felt great about that family meeting. Was we were both talking about the same thing, maybe in different ways.
Yeah.
But we were trying to we were supporting each other, and we were both there together. And I think that that's also what happens with couples is like even if they're working towards a solution, they're sort of working towards it independently. I'm trying to manage my defensiveness. You're trying to manage whatever you're trying to manage. And it's like, it's much more, I want to feel together in it.
So we always say conflict is an opportunity for growth and for learning. And so I know that through that awful 2 hours that was super uncomfortable, and then 10 hours later still having a massive emotional hangover, I know that I learned something about you through that, which always makes me feel more connected to you. And I'm hoping that you learned something about me. I don't know, you don't have had to, but what I learned about you was that like, that you have this guilt from your breakup of your previous family. And so, there might be just like guilt around your parenting or boundaries there, around firmness, or I'm not exactly sure that
the negative impact that it had on those kids. Like
which I was like, oh, is that why like he's not as like on top of them to be engaged or whatever? Like, I didn't know. I just thought it was like you being an absentee parent, honestly. And I know that you're not, because I see you with like our biological kids together, and it's like, because we have them all the time, it's like totally different. And so I got to understand that you have this emotional piece that I will never understand that is attached, to your biological kids. And now I have compassion for that, but we can still work together to create boundaries.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. I had never heard that from you before.
So what I learned is, or what I sort of experienced through, I don't know if I learned anything in like that, in that argument, the biggest, the sort of like crux of it, right? But I think what I learned as it all played out over 24 hours was that you're in this like bind between caring, being connected, having some agency and control in impacting your stepkids, and not. And you sort of like vacillate, because you've done that, like kind of like the most recent thing is like you've been just like, I have to let go. I have to let go. I have to let go. But then I know like you love them. You care for them. You want, it's about your family, but it's also like you actually care and want them to be happy, healthy human beings.
For sure.
And that the dynamics within our family have led you into a place where it's like, I think you still, and this is like, you don't know where to be. Because if you care too much, then you don't have the agency to make an impact with them, then it's hurts and it's frustrating. If you don't care at all, if you pull away and just say, hey, it's not my thing, it's you're the parent, then you're disempowered in how it affects the entire family, how it affects the younger kids, how it affects you and I. And that dynamic leads you into a place where like you don't know where to be.
I feel trapped. Yeah.
You feel trapped. So okay, thank you. You like completed it there. You feel trapped, which then leads you to a place where I would be just better off not being here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I have to be aware of like when you're in that trap place, how do I interact with you? Because the tough thing is like I'm like the warden, like I'm the bad guy. I'm the person that in those moments, it's like I'm trapping you. So the easiest thing, not the easiest, but the most logical thing is like get away from EJ because I'm trapped in his life. I'm trapped in this hellscape
right.
that is being married to EJ.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and then I just realized like we have to talk every day about what feels good and be on the same team every day. Every time I'm anxious, every time I see a behavior that feels like, oh, this doesn't match my values, I've got to let you know. And you've got to be like, okay, honey, how can I support you in this? And vice versa.
Can I flip it though just a little bit? Because that does create a lot of pressure and also like confuses me. How do I support you? It's like, how do we?
Yeah.
Because that's what I feel right now is like a breakdown is it's not we. It's like, well, you, right. Me, like right. I need more we in this.
But that's because we haven't been together in it, because we haven't been talking about it. So it becomes isolated. So that's the thing. If you're not talking about things every day that are a recurring agitation in your relationship, I'm not saying every single day, but like if you're not being preventative, it will come up and swallow you whole. And so every single day, if we know this has been for over a decade an issue, for over a decade, we have to talk about it every day, even if it feels good, because right now it feels good. People said good morning. People talked to each other today. And I don't want it to take that, what happened yesterday or 2 days ago, and then it fades out. And this is what we hear from couples all the time. Oh, we had that big blowout and then things changed. And then weeks later, they became the same thing. I refuse. But
certainly not. We don't want that to become a repetition. But like coming back to the whole idea of like, of sharing this today is that sometimes sometimes we have these like cathartic, not positively cathartic moments that have the potential, if we stay intentional, to create foundational changes. And I'm hoping that this is what happened here, because it reverberated through our entire family. Everybody heard it. Then we did some good stuff. We communicated with everybody, both individually and as a family unit, about what was going on and that we wanted to change. And now we just got to stay consistent. Now we got to notice if we relapse. Now we have to, you and I have to make a fundamental change, that we are in this together, that it's not a separate thing, that it's not all my responsibility, that it's not all about you just having to deal, that it's like, we are in this together. We are creating this thing that is around a unified value we share, is that we want to have this loving, connected family. And how do we help each other in it? And how do we not feel opposed?
Yeah, we'll let you guys know how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because if we get better at being consistent with this, we don't have to have a follow-up podcast.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for, I guess, like, I know over the years, like when we have these big ones, we always end up feeling more closely connected. And I do think for me, there was a fundamental shift of understanding of what needs to happen in order to continue to have a thriving family and relationship. And I'm for sure motivated. So again, it feels uncomfortable, but then you shift and you learn and you grow and you start to become, just new versions of what, couples look like when they grow together through challenges and suffering. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening. We hope, we hope this is an instance of just knowing that like relationship is hard, and that if you're struggling out there, that we understand and we get it. And this is our opportunity to share with you, a very specific moment in our life, and hopefully it helps you. And we ask that you do the same as a member of this community, that you write to us, you send us an email, info@relationshiprenovation.com, through our social channels, Relationship Renovation. Tell us, what are your successes? What are your struggles in your relationship? And we can bring it out here on this show. And people, I can tell you, like, we get letters all the time saying like, thank you for reading that email from that other listener, or hey, here's what's going on with us, because, it makes it feel normal that things aren't perfect. We live in this world where we think like, if we're not perfect, we're screwed. And the reality is like, we all have our stuff.
And our R&R community, that's what I'm going to call it. It feels like it's okay. Like we went through this big thing, definitely not my best self, but I feel like just this R&R community here in Tucson and all of our listeners, like it's okay. This is why we do this podcast, because we want to help and normalize suffering and how relationships are difficult. So thank you for listening. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other. That's an important one. Bye-bye.
Bye.